What's up, guys? Welcome to the Kingdom Men TransforMANation podcast, brought to you by our sponsor, the Acquisition CEO. If you're looking to buy or sell a business or need consulting about buying or selling a business, hit him up at theacquisitionceo.com. And today I've got a really special guest on, good friend of mine, and kind of a mentor to me as well, Steve Leitch, the Scottish swimmer, the Scottish servant swimmer. Nice. I guess that's what we just came up with. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Just give us some background.
Who am I? What do I do? Steve Moby Leitch, yeah, right. So we'll start with that. Moby. Everyone's like, what does Moby mean? Well, I became a grandfather last year.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty exciting.
My grandfather name's Moby. So it kind of goes with the swimming thing.
It does.
Who am I? I'm saved by grace.
Amen.
I'm a child of God, disciple of Jesus, and I love to swim, and I love to swim to serve others.
Yeah.
That's really that's my thing. Big into mentorship. Really huge into mentorship, because mentorship and discipleship, same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. And who else? That's really who I am. What I am, what I'm all about is married, coming up on 10 years married to someone, Kelly, who've known since I was about 2.
Yeah.
Which grew up in different countries, which is crazy, right? And we have a messy blended family of 6. We blended it really well and really badly.
Yeah.
And, we're still kind of living the consequences of divorce and blending and all that. But, God can handle that too. And we give that to him. And then in business, like you said, I swim to raise money for other people. But now our big focus is we're just starting Rising Tides Ministry, which is mentorship houses for men and women coming out of biblical rehab. And really, the big discussion around this has been, are we providing houses? No, we're providing homes. Are we landlords? No, we're training mentors to really walk alongside of men and women who we want them to know their past does not define them.
That's right.
And here's the big one. God has a purpose for your life. Even
beyond that.
Beyond your past.
Yeah.
So that's what our mentors' jobs is going to be, just walking that along with them.
Yeah. No, so you hit a couple of really amazing points there. You talked about our past doesn't define us.
Yep.
We talked about your love to swim, which we're going to talk about that in a minute, because it's just an amazing story. It blows my mind when I tell people I have a friend who swims as far as you do. They're like, it just seems unfathomable. So we'll talk about that. And also another interesting point too, the consequences of divorce and what those things look like. And a lot of times, we can talk about that a little bit, but I want people to know that our choices, they matter, right? And the past doesn't define us, but we can't give up. We can't quit. We still have to navigate, right? So you still woke up today and y'all have been married for 10 years. And so you still have an opportunity to navigate this thing together, and God comes into our lives and he gives us grace and love and mercy. And you lead together with that kind of thing. And I've experienced just a lot of renewal in my marriage as well over the last few recent years. And so being married is also a challenge, right? You're going to take 2 sinners and put them together and put them in a house and be like, go figure it all out, right? Kids, grandkids, pay the bills.
2 sinners in a house together and then
everybody
else.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then, you want to be an entrepreneur
let's
too?
Add more sinners.
Yeah, let's just add more little sinners. That's kids, just little sinners. We're all human.
Right.
One of the things I realized the other day, though, that me and my wife have really worked on is we no longer, when you're first married, it's easy to blame each other for your sin, right? Whatever those shortcomings may be, whether it's addiction or work too much or idols or, external validation, and you're just not, in alignment with who God made you to be. But one thing that we realized is we stopped blaming each other for being sinners, and we started helping each other through it. And that was kind of a pivotal thing in our marriage where, at first, you're like, oh, well, he didn't take out the trash. He doesn't love me, or he's too busy, or she did this. And you're kind of almost picking out each other's shortfalls instead of going, hey, you know what? I know you have shortcomings. I have shortcomings. Let's encourage each other through the process and the journey instead of beating each other up over it every day. So I think that's a critical point for people to take away, is that there is a past, and we'll tie that into kind of what you said about it doesn't necessarily define us. And we've all made choices, right? Even John Maxwell told me one time, he said, we all have days that we hope nobody finds out about, right? So we all have bad days, but they don't have to define us, right? That's kind of the purpose of the whole relationship with Christ, where, we've been forgiven, right? And we can repent, right? We can move on from those things. But it's easy said, it's hard to do, right? Especially in addiction and recovery and really any situation where Satan is a great sales guy. That's what I always tell people. And he sells us these stories.
Whoa.
Okay, all right.
Let's
Okay.
not give him more credit.
Okay, good point.
He sold.
Yeah.
He sold only because, we'll go right back to Genesis, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where the problem began.
Okay.
He sold the story to Eve because she was into the marketing.
Yeah.
She was like,
Ooh.
"Oh, that sounds kind of true.
Sounds like a good idea."
And Adam's standing right there.
Yeah.
And here was the problem. In Kindom men, this is what we're talking about right here, right today. This is where it all started. Adam was standing right there listening to the same sales pitch and did nothing.
Right.
So much so that we know that when she took a bite of the apple, right? Because she's like, that marketing appeals to my soul.
Yeah.
I feel like I need that in my life, along with, all the other things the world's going to market over the next 2,000 years. And she turned, and within arm's reach was the man who was supposed to lead.
Right.
And didn't, and handed the apple. So not only did he not lead and say, no, this marketing, this world marketing that is being marketed to you, this is not going to fill the hole or the void. Okay? He was passive in that, and then he was passive in, you can go down that road, but I'm not.
Yeah, that's
and this is the road I'm going to go down with. And I think as man, especially Kindom man, there comes a point in your marriage, in your parenting, in your business, in your friendships, when you're like, the Lord is calling me to do this. This is where I'm going. You're welcome to come with me or not. The choice is yours. Yeah. And that's a hard conversation for men to have, right? Because that's not passive.
That's not passive, and that's a great word, tolerance and passive, right? And I wasn't the leader of my life or my family for a long time, right? I was busy being entertained or escaping my emotions and thoughts and all the hard things and conversations that I really needed to have.
You're just plucking through the orchard.
Right. You're just plucking through the orchard, eating the apples, You're just going at it. And so I think that there's a lot of really good information that you just laid out. And talking about, don't give Satan more credit than he's due. That's a good point. I like that. But also the fact that he does sell us the stories, right?
100%.
And we tend to keep them like anchors or like bricks or things we stack up in our pack every day. But that's not our identity, who God made us to be. And so we've really got to get humble, and we've got to get down on our knees, literally, and start to set those stories down, right? And start to ask ourselves, do those stories add value to my life? Are those stories in alignment with what God says? Are they in alignment with the Bible? One of the things I found in my own personal life I was guilty of is, I wanted to start to set the stories down, but I wasn't real familiar with what the Bible said about what God's Word said about who I am, right? So it takes work, meaning I realized something was off, in my life, just emotionally and mentally and spiritually. But then I also realized I had to do something about it, which was the other part of the challenge, right? I can't expect to know what God's Word says about me and who I am as a person and the wisdom and how I should operate and all those things if I don't read it,
The more you learn about God, the more you learn about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another thing. Like, people are trying to twist that now into, I need to find myself and learn about myself so I can find God. See how the subtle difference in the world, what the world's saying. And it's like, no. The more I learn about God, the more I'll learn about who I am, why he created me, what he created me for, and I'll be able to hear him. Yeah. But you've got to drown out the noise.
Yeah, no, it's good. So I get a studio where there's no noise.
The gospel's the only truth that anchors and spans the test of time. It does not change.
I agree. I was stunned.
It does not change.
I was stunned this morning. I was reading in my Bible study in Proverbs, and the post I made, the reference was talking about how, don't be busy trying to make money, right? This is basically the short version of it. And so how many people do you know in today's world that are just busy trying to make money? They have that as an idol in their life. But here's where I'm going with that is thousands of years ago, you got to hustle. You got to be intentional.
Got to grind. Got to put everything on the line.
Thousands of years ago, right, what you're saying, it stands the test of time. Thousands of years ago, somebody wrote that wisdom into the Bible. So that tells me that when that was written, they were dealing with the same thing that we deal with today. And so it still stands. It stood the test of time. And you read, but you don't realize that unless you get in the Word and you spend time reading it. And you've got to be committed to that process.
It's good. I mean, God spoke into existence the universe.
Yeah.
The earth. the stars, the moon.
You, me,
more stars than we can count. And if you've ever been in somewhere with no light pollution, like you very quickly realize that Abraham's descendants are more than the stars. Wow, that's a lot of stars.
Yeah.
So if he can speak that into existence, then if we're seeking him, trusting him, and working towards that deeper relationship, do you think he can speak into existence our finances?
Sure. Yeah.
Because life breathes. He breathes life into our nostrils, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
I look at the Bible for mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and financial wisdom.
Yeah.
Right?
Physical we don't think about, right?
Physical we don't think about, but if you look, and that's what I had to start to do. My actions and my soul were at conflict with each other, and there was a friction there, and I knew that, right? And you can see it in kind of the fruit, in your life, your relationships, your marriage, those kind of things, and then your choices. And so I had to start to evaluate, like, what is that friction? What is that rub? And it's really related to my choices were not in alignment with who God made me to be and how God made me to operate. And I kind of had a moment where I was like, I've had enough. Like, I'm just fine, I'll read the Bible. I'll get in the Word. I'll commit time to that, right? And it's been a game changer, but it's really funny because a lot of times when I'm coaching or mentoring somebody and, we get deeper on the conversation and there's that friction inside of their soul and they're like, man, I'm just praying for God to show up. And I ask them, well, are you in the Word? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, God's given us the Word to go to, right? If you're praying for God to show up, He already has. You kind of got to go do your part. You got to go pick up the book and read the thing. And that the Bible is full of action words, verb words, where we're required to do our part, right? He's done His part, and we have to do our part. I heard a pastor one time put it this way: God's grace, love, and mercy are free, but our life on this earth is not. And if you think about that, it's very true, right? There's when you tend to the garden, when you make choices, there are results for those things. Kind of like what we were talking about, bad choices, whether addiction or marriage or relationships, whatever business, whatever those things may be. There's always a result for the choice or for the action. And a lot of times, even in my life, my actions were not in alignment with who God made me to be. So the fruit wasn't the fruit that God intended for me to have in a lot of ways, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. Right. And so when we keep it real simple, because that's one of my favorite words is simple. Right.
Yeah.
And you go read the Word and you tie that with some good Bible study plans, which I always tell people, download the Bible app. Right.
Simple.
Keep it simple. Download the Bible app.
Right,
go in there. You can go to plans. You can find all kinds of plans on anxiety, on relationships, marriage, finances, and then dedicate time every day to where in the morning or evening or whatever works for your schedule to where you're doing that plan, but not just to read it, but to chew on it. Right, to reflect, right? Make sure that you're not just reading it to check the box. And that's okay at first if that's what you want to do. It's better than nothing. But get some time. Go sit down. Take 20 minutes, take 30 minutes out of your day, which everybody can do. And I call it sharpening the tongue tie, sharpening the sword and strengthening the shield, right? Because Satan is out to get us every day. And so there's a lot that we could talk about on that subject. But let's kind of go back and talk about the encouraging piece that just because we spent time in one place in our sin doesn't mean that that's who we have to be and that's where we have to stay. Because I think a lot of people, they really struggle with that. You fall off the wagon a day and they just all of a sudden wear that as their name tag. They're like, oh, this is just my identity. But that's Satan just trying to sell them that story, right? Instead of them repenting and going, that's not who God made me to be. That's not what God made me to do. I'm going to reflect and pay attention on setting those stories down. And for me, it's allowed me to operate in more faith and less fear in my life. And so
fear is the opposite of faith.
It is. Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you start to study these things and you start to implement them in your life and you start to really realize how those things are. When people are afraid, I'm like, well, how much faith you got? I'm afraid this business isn't going to work out. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. A lot of people, they operate with a lot of fear. And I just ask them, well, you're a man of faith or a woman of faith, person of faith. You believe in God. How much faith you got?
So here's the other part of faith. And what you said there is, let's just take the guy that's starting a business.
Yeah.
Okay. And what you said was so funny because you've heard it. So I'm afraid that this business isn't going to work out. Like you're already worried about the result.
Right. Yeah.
And not the process of just like, I'm running a business for God.
Right.
So it cannot fail if it's who am I going to meet, how I'm going to share my story, how I'm going to get to know their story, and how are we going to share the gospel?
Yeah.
Like in business, that is, your business will grow.
Yeah.
No, the zeros might not be the expectation that you want or whatever, but those zeros don't matter.
They don't define
those zeros
you.
don't matter. I was doing my Joe Biden joke there. Nobody's saying that.
Right.
But sorry. It's a joke we had going this summer. It just started to come out. But no, that's the thing. We all get so results based.
Mm-hmm.
And faith isn't a result.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process.
That's right.
It's a process. You're never going to arrive in your teens, your 20s, your 30s. You're just, I'm going in my 50s, just turned 50. I haven't arrived. Not even close.
Right.
Pretty sure it's not going to happen in my 60s.
Right.
Probably not going to happen in my 70s. I can't say I'm going to arrive until I step over into the next life, right?
Right.
And it's that process of like constantly, okay, the more and more I can ask, what do you want of me today? How can I step into this?
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't do it on everything because there's some like, oh, I got this.
Right.
And it blows up in my face. And
right.
God's like, yeah, see,
yeah.
You could have given that to me as well.
Yeah.
The
process of surrender.
And it's the process of surrender. Yeah.
You're 100% right. We fall in love with the result, right?
Or win-lose.
We define ourselves by the result. We chase the result instead of the process or the journey. You could be, financial and physical are two things people can usually really easily relate to. People say they want to make money, but if you look at their tasks, they're not related, right? They're not in the day-to-day journey. People say they want to be in shape, but if you look at the actions and the tasks and what they prioritize, they're not in the journey. And so what I have found is a lot of people, they fall in love with that result instead of the process, right? They want to have a great relationship with God, but they don't spend time in the Word, right? It's like it's the biblical concept of tending to the garden, right?
Right.
If you want the fruit, guess what? You got to build the fence, you got to till the soil, prep the soil, water the seeds, prune the plants, do the things. But what's encouraging about that is if you spend time tending to the garden, right, and you apply wisdom and you learn and you surround yourself with other people to help you learn how to be a better gardener, the fruit almost always happens, whatever that may look like, whether it's a healthier marriage, right? If you spend time in the garden, tending to the garden in your marriage, you're going to have a better marriage.
Every time.
If you spend time in the garden physically, you're going to have better results in your physical fitness. If you spend time tending to the garden in your business and doing good things and biblically wise things, you're going to have the fruit of the finances in your business, right? And here's what's always interesting to me, talking about like faith and business, because when I got into real estate, I heard a guy said, you should never talk about politics and religion, right, and business. For me, Christianity is not religion.
No, it's not. I was going to say, I never talk about religion. Yeah, I talk about Jesus.
That's exactly right. So, but it's funny because I do talk about it a lot, but it's made such a significant difference in my life. But here's the thing that it really boils down to. If the simple version that I've kind of put it into is God calls us to do good things where we are, right? And that's really the simple thing, whether that's in our personal life or our marriage or friends or even in business. And I always ask people this, wouldn't you rather do business with somebody that has a foundational principle that they believe that they should do good things wherever they are? And if we start with that, things are probably going to work out pretty well for everybody involved. And then I go, yeah, that makes good sense. Instead of saying, hey, I'd rather do some deceitful things. I'm really motivated by the end result and not this process and who we can become in the journey, but that we just should agree that we should do good things wherever we are and wherever we go. And if we start with that, we can make a difference, right?
Yeah, and I'll pull it back even a step further from that, which is when I look at a man and his relationship with his wife
mm-hmm.
and what he's doing inside of his house. Now, in my situation, my son hasn't talked to me in 3 months now. My daughter's communicating with me, but I haven't seen her in 3 months. So, there's broken relationships there.
Sure.
But inside of my home, I'm working on cultivating the relationships of the people I have in my house. And when you look at that, are you worshiping together? Are you praying together? Are you, in the Word together? Those kind of things. If you can't do it in your own,
mm-hmm.
and let's just call it a little business.
Yeah.
If you want to do that,
yeah.
if you, and I taught the kids this growing up, learn how to serve the person right next to you in your house,
mm-hmm.
not go out to find somebody to serve.
Yeah.
Because if you serve from the inside out,
yeah,
it becomes just natural. It's exercising the muscle, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between the guys who are talking about religion, because you can see, like you're looking online, you're looking at things, and you can just sense something's off.
Sure.
It's interesting. Like about 2 years ago, when we met for coffee.
Yeah.
You're on fire. Like you just come out the gates, quit drinking. Like you're just spraying everybody.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to balance these scales.
Yeah.
And the reason I know it, because I did the same thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And but it was within about 6 to 8 months I started noticing Leitch showing up, and your conversations, like your posts and things shifted online, which was less about Justin's coming out and just spraying the world with like his newfound enthusiasm and trying to, balance the scales.
Right.
To now he's, I need to invest in my marriage first. And you start seeing Leitch showing up, and I'm like, okay, now here we go.
Right.
Now here we go.
Yeah. 100% right. You're like, I gotta right all the wrongs. Like I gotta just get to do it all,
You see this bag of guilt and shame?
Yeah.
I forgot to leave it at the cross.
Yeah.
You know? Like I know we think we're forgiven, and we say we're forgiven.
Yeah.
But like as men, we just love to wear that
As
badge of honor.
I was gonna say, like a badge of honor.
Carry it, that rucksack of guilt and shame, instead of going, man, this is one of the most profound things my dad ever said to me. He said, Steve, you don't go to heaven or hell because of sin.
Mm-hmm.
Sin got handled on the cross.
Mm.
He goes, many shall knock, but few will I know. It's relationship.
It's so true.
So it's every day, every minute. How Jesus, man, just waking up. Thank you for today. What can I do today? How can I serve for you today? What do you want of me today? And sometimes you hear it clear, and sometimes you're like, okay, we're just going to take a spin at this and see what happens.
Right. Yeah.
But it's relationship. So if that's modeled for us, like he says, right, then what is a marriage supposed to look like?
We should be modeling
relationship.
Yeah. It's so true. It's funny. I was having a conversation with somebody, I think late last week. Could have been earlier this week because it's just Wednesday. But we were talking about change, right? Let's say a husband changes or a wife changes. Somebody has a moment in their life where they kind of wake up, right? And they're like, listen, I've arrived at a destination I don't like. It's really time to do something about it, whatever that may mean. Well, in my case, it took about 6 or 8 months for Shay to believe me.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I'm surprised it happened that fast.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah, it's a huge win. But, you're going on this journey of setting down all these stories and all these bricks and all these things that you're having to just go through in that season of life. Because when you decide to change the way that you've been operating, there's a lot of things that come out of that, right? A lot of good things, but also a lot of bad things that you have to have conversations about. And that's painful, and that's just part of the process. But I remember one time she looked at me and she said, because I'm like, babe, I am fighting the fight over here. Like, where are you at? And she's like, I don't know if I believe you yet. And I'm like, okay, all right. I guess I got to keep showing up, and because you're like,
because your words don't matter,
right? Yeah,
like that's the
right.
Thing. Just because you've turned the corner.
Right.
And the light switch has been switched on for you.
Now what are you going to do?
That's why, someone very close to me, Steve, shut your mouth and let your actions speak louder than words until people start speaking so loudly for you that you don't have to speak anymore.
That's good. That's good.
And I really enjoyed speaking in the beginning. It was gross. It was really gross. And to this day, I can still get a little jumpy and like, hey, look at me. And I have to ground myself like, no, this isn't about me. So I'm constantly saying, I do this to serve other people. I want to serve other people.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't believe how much I get in trouble for doing the dishes in the sink. I was coming to do those. I'm like, I just do them.
I just want to do them.
I just want to do them. Yeah. It's no big deal to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it's really the reason I talk about it a lot is because it made such Christ in my relationship and that redemption in my life and my personal life with my wife and just my household and me, myself, mentally and emotionally. When I really started to set things down at the cross, right, and be like, and have faith. All right, God, he literally came knocking on my door and called me out of a grave. And I had to have a moment where I had enough, right, to be able to start to set those things down and set my pride down and be humble and raise my hand and say, hey, I got problems. Yeah. And so I talk about it a lot because now I'm free, right? Like the way that I feel mentally and emotionally and spiritually, and just the way that I'm connected to God and the alignment there and all of those things and it's a daily process of continuing to set things down, right? But that's what I want to encourage people to experience, because you can be free from the things and the stories of the past. And we'll talk about that too. It's a good point to segue into it, about all of those things don't define you. They don't define who you are, who you have to be, right? It's a part of your journey and a part of your story. Absolutely. And you've arrived at a place and there's going to be some baggage with that, right? Because of our choices. But get committed to your faith and step out of the fear of what that baggage is going to be, or what. Don't predefine that. Just say, hey, you know what? I know that God is knocking on my heart, mind, and soul, and he doesn't want me to participate in these things because it's led me to a destination of pain and frustration and chaos and anxiety, and I'm in the dark and I'm alone. That doesn't have to be who you are, right? And so Christ gives us the opportunity to set those things down and operate in alignment with who he made us to be, right?
Yeah. And you don't need to prove how much you've changed,
right?
Because you haven't changed a lot.
Right.
Just your mind, your heart and soul have changed. It says, I no longer want to do this. So it's not about, at that point, proving to everyone that you're making this change. It's just about going, Lord, continue to change me, continue to change me, continue.
And day by day,
and I actually think you'll get there faster the less you try and prove it.
Yeah, I think so. That's why in sobriety I never got into the counting the days thing for me. It was more of a day by day, right? Because when I would fail, it made me feel like a loser. You know what I mean? And it made me want to wear that as an identity. Like, I just can't do this. Instead of going,
not good enough.
Right, I'm just not good enough.
You're not good enough.
Right, you can't do it.
See, it told you.
Right, exactly. All those things.
There's just too much going on in this world.
You can't do it.
Like, you need this.
Yeah, you got to have that. And so
your wife was right.
Exactly, right. All the things. And so that's why I encourage people, take it one day at a time. Whatever it is that you're dealing with in life, step by step, moment by moment. Get honest with yourself. Have reflection. Have accountability. Have people in your corner that you trust, that you want to have conversations with about hard things. But wake up each day, just like you said, and be like, all right, God, I got to navigate today. And that's why personally I love to get in the Word in the morning, because it helps set me up with my shield to be, looking for the things to come knocking.
Yeah.
Throughout the day.
You're building your house on solid ground. I'll give you something to think about, if this is okay.
Sure, yeah.
The process of one day is too big of a process. It's just too big.
Yeah.
Like, there's from the time you wake up. So I'm up at like 4:30 every morning.
Yeah.
Till 9:30 every night. Hopefully not 10.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting older. Think about how many things you're going to experience and go through in that time. So that's just trying to make it through a day is ridiculous. What did it say? Pray constantly. So, like, if you break that process down, and we'll talk about this later, the swimming, the swimmers, ultra marathon swimmers like I do, we all talk about just make it to the next feat, and that was 30 minutes. Let me tell you, after you've been swimming for 10 hours, 30 minutes can sometimes feel like an eternity.
Sure.
And you're just like, oh my gosh. And first guy to finish Ocean's 7, Stephen Redford told Darren Miller, who Darren Miller told me, I was like, Steve, just keep putting one hand in front of the other. And I was like, see, that's the process. So it's not one day. It's like
step by step.
Step by step. Right.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I appreciate that. I always ask people if there's one piece of advice that you could share with somebody to encourage them, or a couple of small tidbits to help them make a difference in their life in some capacity, whatever that may be, whether that's business, spiritual, physical, whatever it may be, something that, you have applied in your life, or somebody said to you, or you do apply, where you're like, if I could have a moment to share with somebody that I wanted to make a difference in their life, this is what it would be. What would that be?
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious things are you go to your habits, right? Your daily disciplines. And I think those are really important. But I'm starting to realize that disciplines and habits, they help over time. They help you grow and all these things. But just what with the conversation we've just been having at the end there, I truly believe the more that you can give thanks, in all things give thanks. We had something go wrong, not right in business the other day, right?
Yeah.
Quotes came back. We're about to start it up.
Yeah.
It didn't go well.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I have this choice. We could just start the job and then go, well, the receipts came in more, which I'm just never going to do.
Right.
You know, I've had it done to me way too many times.
Yeah.
So it was like, we have a phone call. I prayed before I called you. We had an open, honest conversation. We came up with some solutions, and we moved forward. But then, in that moment, at the end, after I got off the phone, I just gave thanks because God's working in your life and your heart to show you grace, to show us grace, so that I can show grace and not be defensive, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's seeing if we can just slow down and give thanks even when things don't go to plan.
Because there's a reason for it.
There's always a reason for it.
Yeah.
Because I would ask you this question on the flip side of that. Do you trust me more or less after that conversation?
Right, more, definitely. Yeah.
Right. But if I had shown up.
Yeah. It would be hard for me to not have grace if the bill at the end of the thing's significantly different.
Right. And I think that's the thing. You know, I've heard this, man. The end doesn't justify the means.
That's right.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's be open, be transparent, and give thanks to the Lord for how He's already working in the situation.
Yeah.
And you know, if you can remember this little thing, when Daniel was thrown into the pit, right, by his brothers, okay, the caravan that came by, it just didn't start that morning.
Right. Right. Yeah, they headed out long before.
So if God sent that caravan out long before,
yeah,
He's already at work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I'm really on right now is like, look for God's hand in everything, and you will see it.
Yeah.
You'll see it.
We find what we look for. Yeah.
You know,
it's good.
Three red Jeeps, you'll go find them today, right?
You will.
But if you look for God's goodness and His miracles
and everything,
and His provision and everything,
you'll find
it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
That's what we're going to leave with today.
I like that. Well, Steve, thanks for being on. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I appreciate you, man. Love you like a brother. I'm thankful for our friendship and looking forward to many things in the future to come. Going to give a follow-up shout-out to our sponsor, the Acquisition CEO. So if you have questions about buying or selling a business or want some consultation or education on buying or selling a business, hit him up at theacquisitionceo.com. And as always, thanks for checking out the Kindom Men TransforMANation. And let's go do some winning. See ya.
Cheers.